Now at 10, 7 inmates escaped the Berry County Jail in Missouri, and jailers are assaulted. What we know as authorities search for the last remaining inmate. Plus,
President Biden addresses the nation on a deal to avert default. I'm Natalie Brand at the White House with the president's remarks and why both sides are touting a win.
And how a local foundation in Joplin today is sticking it to cancer.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
President Biden celebrated the passage of bipartisan legislation that will avert a debt default that could have dealt a major blow to the U.S. economy. Thank you for choosing KOAM News at 10. I'm Jalen Banks. Reporter Natalie Brand has the latest from the White House on the president's address to the nation tonight.
Passing this budget agreement was critical. The stakes could not have been higher.
In an Oval Office address Friday night, President Biden hailed the newly passed budget and debt agreement that heads off an unprecedented default.
No one got everything they wanted, but the American people got what they needed. We averted an economic crisis, an economic collapse.
The bill, which was brokered by the president and Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, raises the nation's debt limit past the 2024 presidential election. It essentially freezes domestic spending for 2 years, while hiking Pentagon spending by 3%. Not enough for some GOP senators worried about limits to defense spending.
The people who negotiated this, I wouldn't let them buy me a car.
While Republican negotiators tout spending cuts, President Biden points to protections for programs including Social Security, Medicare, and medical care for veterans.
Medicare is protected, and so are millions of people most in need.
The president says he will sign the bill on Saturday, just ahead of the Monday deadline when the Treasury Secretary says the U.S. will run short of cash to pay its bills. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, the White House.
Credit rating agency Fitch is warning it could still downgrade the U.S. credit rating despite the debt ceiling deal. Analysts believe repeated political standoffs around the debt limit lowers confidence that U.S. lawmakers can govern on fiscal and debt matters. The search for survivors in a partially collapsed apartment building in Davenport, Iowa is over. City officials aren't saying whether they found any signs of life or bodies. During an update this morning, the mayor announced the focus is shifting to recovery efforts. Specialized teams are working on reinforcing what's left of the building so recovery efforts can begin. And now to weather, Gloria Royal joins us with the first look.
We've seen some scattered showers and storms across the metro this afternoon and into this evening, and it's starting to fizzle out heading into the later hours. It's starting to lose that energy. This is kind of the last storm that we're keeping an eye on for right now. Just passed through Neosho and Joplin, heading northwest into Columbus as well as Pittsburgh, heading over by Parsons as well. So you'll hear some thunder boomers, hear some noise here and there, and you'll see some lightning as well. So make sure you're staying indoors with that, but it's much needed rainfall with this drought that we're seeing, especially off to our west. Our western counties saw the most rain today, which was much needed. Now coming up here in a bit, we're going to talk about the storm system this weekend. It'll be very isolated once again, just like today, as well as the cool front that we have this week. And our next storm system, I'll have all the details coming up next.
All right, we'll see that. 7 inmates from the Berry County, Missouri jail last night, and one is still a fugitive at this moment. The sheriff says at 11:30 last night, the inmates tricked the guards, choked them out, and put them in handcuffs. 5 were caught in the area. 1 turned himself in. Mario Chatel is still out there. The U.S. Marshals are after him now. He was in the county jail for child molestation charges. Berry County Sheriff Danny Boyd says he may be going north and was planning this for months. Reporter Liam Garrity was at the jail in Cassville and spoke to the sheriff on what happened.
2 jailers for 60 inmates. That's how many correctional officers were inside the jail when 7 inmates escaped.
We try to treat people fair and try to do the right thing, and then when these people come in and do these kind of things to somebody who's trying to help them, it's a sad.
Berry County Sheriff Danny Boyd says an inmate told a jailer they needed their blood pressure checked. Then they pounced.
Grabbed them from behind and literally choked them out till they passed out.
Sheriff says his jailers played it by the book, but they are understaffed. People in the area were surprised by the news.
I was concerned about coming to the pool because some of them were captured in this area.
The pool she's talking about is the Cassville Aquatic Center. Sheriff Boyd says 2 inmates were found there. 3 were found quickly down the street, and 1 turned himself in. Marie Iams was at the aquatic center later. She's a bus driver and was nervous for the kids.
Just extra precautionary. We're pretty good at keeping an eye on the kids and everything, but we just did a little extra, or I did. I'm sure the others did too.
Sheriff Boyd says inmates escaped last year as well, but he says there was a glimmer of hope in all of this.
There were some inmates that came in and helped unhandcuff our 2 correctional officers and actually helped break the door out the window so that they could get out to go get help.
Sheriff says their new jail should fix all of these issues. It should be done in the summer 2024. Everyone I spoke to can't wait for the enhanced security.
It does make me thankful that they're building a new facility.
Having the correct facility to hold these kind of people and house them correctly, and the officer safety will be tremendous.
Hopefully, we're looking forward to that happening. Hopefully it'll be safer.
Again, Chatol is armed and dangerous. Sheriff Boyd says to not approach him. If you know anything about where he is, call 911. Authorities in Parsons, Kansas have charged a man after he was arrested following a standoff with police. Stadarish Herman is charged with 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder, criminal discharge of a firearm at an occupied dwelling, and aggravated endangerment of a child. Police arrested him yesterday evening after a standoff at the Parsons Village apartment complex. Police surrounded the complex, and Herman initially refused to come out, but police later entered the apartment and arrested him without incident. You can read more about the case on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. A project manager hired to clean up lead-contaminated soil at Granby, Missouri's City Park is sentenced in federal court. A federal judge sentenced 65-year-old Len Ike to serve 5 years of probation and pay a $40,000 fine. Ike's employer, Environmental Quality Management, received a nearly $12 million contract to perform waste remediation in the Granby area. Last year, Ike admitted he gave federal officials false information about the scope and amount of lead contamination at Granby City Park. Officials say the deceit cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars to correct. Authorities say 2 people are dead after a crash near Cassville. It happened Wednesday night on Highway 248 just outside of town. The Missouri Highway Patrol reports the driver, Ryland Wilson of Cassville, lost control of his motorcycle. Both Wilson and a juvenile were thrown from it when the motorcycle hit an embankment. The juvenile was pronounced dead on scene. Wilson was taken to Mercy Hospital in Springfield, where he later died. Still ahead, a local foundation in Joplin today fundraises to Stick It to Cancer. We'll visit the event. Plus, an organization in Parsons, Kansas hosts a kid fun run for a good cause. The remains of a World War II soldier were buried today in Independence, Kansas. U.S. Army Air Force Staff Sergeant David E. Holman was a La Harpe, Kansas native. He was stationed in the Philippines, where Japanese forces invaded in December 1941. Holman was among thousands of U.S. and Filipino service members captured and interned at POW camps when U.S. forces and Bataan surrendered. Records show Holman died in July of 1942. He was buried with other prisoners in a common grave. Holman's remains were identified last year by DNA testing. A local foundation hosted an event to Stick It to Cancer. The Mercy Health Foundation hosted a dinner from area restaurants, and our very own Dow Quick emceed the event. The dinner had a twist. They served everything on a stick. There was also live music. Proceeds from the event will fund equipment and programs to benefit area cancer patients. Moms Demand Action today held a kids fun run and donation drive for Safe House at Forest Park in Parsons, Kansas. Participants brought donations such as personal hygiene items, household cleaning items, paper goods, diapers, and pet food to run. Children were allowed to participate and received small prizes for running. It also included music and various food trucks.
This is about common sense, ownership, responsibility. You know, I'm a law enforcement officer. Obviously, I have guns. You know, I'm trained in how to use them. I understand the law and the responsibilities that go with it. We hope that the rest of the community who are responsible gun owners do the same thing.
Get a gun safe, lock them up in some way where children can't get to them.
The Safe House Crisis Center provides shelter and resources to survivors of domestic abuse. Kids in Neosho spent their Friday out by the water catching some fish. The Neosho National Fish Hatchery today hosted its annual Kids Fishing Derby. Kids between the ages of 7 and 12 could compete and were able to catch up to 4 fish. Officials say this event gives kids a valuable chance to get outdoors for some fun.
We have volunteers to help everybody that don't know how to fish. We got volunteers to help them learn how to fish, help them put bait on the hook. We got volunteers to help them take fish off the hook. So this is a community event, and we couldn't do this event without the community.
This is the second fishing derby the hatchery has held this year. Newell Coach, a leading RV luxury coach manufacturer in Miami, Oklahoma, is preparing for a $7.5 million expansion project, supported by $2 million in funding from the Oklahoma Department of Commerce. In April, the company received notification of approval for the award under the state's Business Expansion Incentive Program. This funding will enable Newell Coach to establish a state-of-the-art 150,000 square foot office complex, address stormwater runoff concerns on its premises, and generate employment opportunities.
We have added facilities on our campus here in Miami, quite a few over the last 10 years. We've added a new production facility, a service expansion, a new frontline building. So we're continuing to add as our company growth allows.
The Business Expansion Incentive Program assists Oklahoma companies making major capital investments in items such as machinery, equipment, and buildings. A bit later, blueberry season is back. How a Southwest Missouri berry farm got a head start on the season.
We're tracking scattered showers and storms right now. I'll give you the full timeline, including some more information coming up next. Well, this afternoon was a little dicey with those scattered showers and storms. Luckily, we're on the tail end of that. Just for tonight, we'll see that slight break. Let's take a look at our Indigo Sky Casino and Resort just west of Seneca, Missouri. It's calming down outside compared to what it was earlier. We saw a lot of rainfall, scattered rainfall, not widespread by any means, but definitely those isolated, kind of summer-like. These are kind of the storms that you would see in late July at this point. So it's a little odd to see these kinds of storms. Neosho is pretty much in the clear at this point. Joplin still seeing some scattered showers and storms. This system was pretty strong just about an hour or two ago, but it has since tapered down completely, or almost completely, as it heads towards Columbus, Pittsburgh, and even over in the Parsons area. So you guys will still be seeing some scattered showers as well as some isolated thunder boomers here and there, but thankfully this is good news because our drought monitor is still pretty on the dry side, especially as you head a little further west. Independence, Chanute, even over by Wichita, you guys are very dry in that exceptional range. So thankfully the rain that we saw today gave us a little bit of that relief, which is once again much needed, and we'll continue to see a little bit more rainfall heading into this weekend. Our overall accumulation predictions about just under 0.2 of an inch for Miami, but as you head a little further west, that's where we'll see the most rainfall totals, which is where we need it the most, thank goodness. So we'll get to see a little bit more relief for that drought pretty soon here. Here's a timeline of the temperatures as you wake up in the morning. Early tomorrow morning, we'll see temperatures mid to upper 60s across the board. We'll see a break in the morning before we see those isolated showers begin to creep into the region. Once again, Saturday afternoon, temperatures mid to upper 80s, so mighty warm outside. We'll get a little bit of a break as we head into the late night, into the early Sunday morning hours. Temperatures in the mid to lower 60s, waking up in the morning. Once again, kind of a similar setup. We'll start clear in the morning, and then those scattered showers will begin to develop in the afternoon and evening hours. hours as it starts to warm up even more. It gets really hot and muggy outside, bringing that energy just enough for those scattered showers and storms. Upper 80s across the board Sunday afternoon, and then Monday morning we'll wake up once again into those 60s, clearing off, and that's when we'll start to see that break for the rainfall in terms of the rain. So into your morning hours, temperatures only getting down into the mid 60s, 65 for your low for Joplin. We'll warm up into the 80s by the time we get to 10 a.m. So we're going to warm up mighty quickly heading into the mid-morning hours. Here's a look at our 7-day forecast and even our extended look. Temperatures warming up into the upper 80s across the board. Feeling really warm, muggy, some isolated rain and showers Saturday and Sunday, but a beautiful, beautiful week ahead.
For sure, and I'm happy that summer is just around the corner. We just got through the unofficial start of summer earlier this week. Those temps look great.
Yes, we're right on track.
All right, thank you, Chloe. And as we all know, the month of June means blueberry season is upon us once again. Nick Kelly went down to a berry farm near the Missouri-Arkansas line where picking started earlier than ever.
The second week of June through July is the usual peak blueberry season here in the Ozarks. For Persimmon Hill Farm, though, this is the first time in 10 years that they were able to get a head start. The farm opened for picking at the end of May for its earliest varieties of blueberries, with other varieties, even the blackberries, starting to come along nicely. One of the owners gives credit to Mother Nature that gave them a warm spring and prevented a late frost.
A lot of the times when they start to blossom and whatever, we'll have a little cold spell and it'll hold them back, but it stayed warm and we were able to escape that the late frost, so conditions were just right and they ripened early.
With more varieties of blueberries, blackberries, and gooseberries coming along, this farm is looking at a pretty good season for everyone near and far to enjoy.
And still ahead, the Webb City Cardinals hit the field in the state semifinals this afternoon. And the Joplin Outlaws aim for a 2-0 start at home against Des Moines. Jacob Leonard has those highlights and more next.
The Webb City High School baseball team is in the state semifinals for the first time since 2010. The Cards hit the field this afternoon against St. Francis Borgia in the Class 5 semifinals. Now, the winner of this one advances to play for a state championship tomorrow afternoon. Webb City trying to snap Borgia's 10-game winning streak and earn a spot against Festus tomorrow in the state championship. At the top of the first inning, Kaylor Darnell on the mound for Webb City. Gets the first out of the game on a strikeout there. This game scoreless until the bottom of the third. And Borgia gets on the board first. RBI single here gets through the left side. Knights take a 1-0 lead with that. Now still in the third. With runners on, Darnell. Big strikeout here. He finishes the game going 5 1/3. Picks up 5 strikeouts along the way. Going to 6th, Tanner McPherson up for Borgia. Lines this one back up the middle. 2-run score on that. The Knights push their lead to 4-0 in the inning. So top of the 7th, last chance for the Cardinals. But it'll be strike 3 here, and that is the ball game. St. Francis Borgia beats Webb City 4-0. Cardinals will play for 3rd place tomorrow morning.
You just try to tell the kids, hey, I know this is really frustrating. You feel like you're in the game, and then you feel like a stadium championship gets ripped from you, and that's just how it is, and that's baseball sometimes. And so you just try to regroup and tell them to flush it and try to show up tomorrow and win the next one.
The Joplin Outlaws won their season opener last night, beating the Des Moines Peak Prospects 5-4 in walk-off fashion. Now, tonight, those two teams meet again in Joplin to wrap up their 2-game set. And Joplin tries to make it back-to-back wins tonight to open their schedule. Now, Luke Schmedding on the mound tonight for the Outlaws. And he got some early run support. Bottom one, William Kelly, RBI single to left, scores Tragan Parker and Colton Reynolds. Makes it 2-0 home team. Top of the 3rd, Schmedding gets his first strikeout there. More from him in just a minute. Bottom 3, Colton Howerton up for Joplin, sends an RBI single into center. Colton Reynolds scores on that. Outlaws push their lead to 5-0 after the 3rd inning. Then top 4, Schmedding still cruising on the mound, gets the strikeout looking. 4 shutout innings for Schmedding, allowing just 2 hits, but then the weather hits and the game is postponed with the Outlaws leading 5-0 in the top of the 5th. The St. Louis Cardinals and Kansas City Royals have each had the last 2 nights off after playing each other for a pair of games earlier this week in St. Louis. Tonight, though, both are back on the field. Cardinals on the road tonight facing NL Central rival Pittsburgh for Game 1 of their 3-game series. That one is over. Pirates score 6 runs in the 7th to beat St. Louis 7-5. Nolan Arenado goes 3 for 5 on the night with a pair of RBIs. As for the Royals, they're back home tonight, opening a 3-game interleague series with the Colorado Rockies. Edward Olivares and Drew Waters each go deep for Kansas City, but the Rockies get 6 in the 8th, going on to win this one 7-2. So back to the Outlaws. Good start for the Outlaws. They win their home opener in walk-off fashion last night. They take a 5-0 lead tonight. Although the game is postponed, they're off to a nice start.
So technically, they are 2-0 at home to start the season, even though they're going to finish that game.
They'll finish that game in Des Moines.
Iowa.
If they lose, it won't count.
So they did. All right, we're good. Off to a good start for them. That's a look at sports. We're back with more after this. Well, Chloe, I know we've had a lot of scattered showers. We had some heat. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, so this weekend is something to keep an eye out. If you're out and about Saturday and Sunday, you'll see some scattered showers, possibly some storms here and there, kind of similar to today, but a little less severe or less significant. And then for the rest of the week, it's honestly looking really beautiful before we see our next chance for some storms. Saturday and even into Sunday, we'll see some pop-up storms.
I mean, that forecast encapsulates the 4 states, whereas today we had towns that were up in the 90s, and then we're going to have potential lows into the 50s next week. So
there's that saying where it's like, if you don't like the weather now, just wait 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
True here, for sure.
Leonard, what do we have?
One more game for Webb City High School. They'll face Fort Zumwalt South for 3rd place in the Class 5 state tournament. 10 a.m. tomorrow in Ozark. Of course, we'll have the latest from that right here tomorrow night.
All right, sounds good. We thank you all for joining us. It's been a great week. Let's make it a great evening. But before you go, we'll leave you with a video from tonight's parade at Good Old Days in Fort Scott, Kansas. Be safe, and we'll do this all again. Have a safe weekend.